Kinds of tough choices our families make by cutting unnecessary spending without raising taxes. I'm Tom Bogar, and I approve this message.
Welcome back. I'm Kevin Supka, and we've been talking with Dee Adcock, who is the congressional candidate for the 13th District in Pennsylvania, running against the incumbent, Allison Schwartz, and Tom Bogar, who is running for state representative in the 153rd Legislative District, currently occupied by Josh Shapiro. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thank you.
We were talking about some of the more prevalent issues that you've been addressing on the campaign trail, and of course, there's probably no larger an issue, certainly that Congress ran away from this past week, than that of the current tax code, and of course, taxes and their ultimate effect on the economy. Maybe we can chat a little bit about that in light of what Congress failed to do here. But there is a general consensus out there amongst Democrats that taxes are too low, that in fact they should be raised, and they should most predominantly be raised on upper-end voters and wage earners. What are your thoughts on this? Dee?
Look, right now, as a small businessman, like small businessmen across the country, the biggest problem we have is the uncertainty. The uncertainty of health care, the uncertainty that the stimulus bill has caused, the uncertainty of not even knowing what our taxes will be next year, and whether it's a small businessman or just the individual. Congress left town without bothering to tell us what they were going to do with their taxes. Allison Schwartz is on the committee that should have been making sure that that got done, the Ways and Means Committee, yet with a Democratic Congress, Democratic President, it didn't get done.
Speaking from the same side of experience as a tax and business attorney who represents businesses like Dee's, I agree, and I found that the same is true. Businesses, not just small businesses, but large businesses as well, need that certainty in the tax code, and you'll see, because what these politicians in Congress in Harrisburg don't seem to understand is that businesses plan out quarters and years ahead of time based on taxation, regulations, and certainties. And you'll see how the economy has been up and down the last several months. And a lot of it is because of this uncertainty. When something is leaked through the media, whether the Bush tax cuts will be repealed or not, or have some other tax cuts, no one really seems to know where the future lies in terms of how businesses can plan out for the future. And this is very devastating to the jobs and the markets.
As Tom said, certainly I can't run my business. I can't get loans from a bank without a budget. Yet we seem to think at this point we can run our country without a budget. There's no accountability. There's just reckless spending coming out of Washington. And I hold our representative, Allison Schwartz, fully responsible. She's on the Budget Committee, she's vice chair, and we don't have a budget.
And one more thing you also said that is very interesting is because of the uncertainty, banks won't lend money out to small businesses to develop and grow as well because of this uncertainty.
That's a very good point.
And so this is hurting everybody from Washington down to Pennsylvania, down to Harrisburg, down to Abington, Upper Dublin. And in fact, I represent businesses trying to start up, and to get the capital, they just can't get it because the banks aren't lending the money. So it hurts everybody.
Dee, I would assume that on the federal level that you would be in favor of keeping the current tax code in place.
I would think that we want to keep it just the way it is for at least 2 years and allow this recovery to start to take hold.
I agree. In fact, it's funny because the Democratic counterpart to ATRO, on their website there's a picture of President Obama and also President Jack Kennedy, and it was Jack Kennedy. And I can't say the quote exactly, but it's to the effect that nothing will hurt a business more than taxation and ruin a business. And he was a strong advocate of cutting taxes. And I think it's just very ironic when my opponent, Josh Shapiro, and Dee's opponent, Allison Schwartz, are the big proponents of taxation, taxing big businesses almost to death. So I just think it's a great answer.
Clearly, I've had to cut back with my business. Individual families have cut back. Businesses across the country have cut back. But has government cut back? No.
No, it's exploded.
It's exploded.
Absolutely exploded. Let's talk a little bit about something near and dear to Pennsylvania, and that is a tremendous economic asset that we have called the Marcellus Shale, which is, we know, is a very, very large gas reserve in upstate Pennsylvania, partially shared with parts of lower upstate New York. There's been a lot of discussion about that from an EPA standpoint, from a taxation standpoint, general viewpoint of looking at this as something to be probably taxed to death as opposed to utilized for national security and so forth. Dee, where do you see things kind of flushing out with that?
As far as I'm concerned, Marcellus Shale is just a godsend, both to our country and to our state. The clean burning natural gas is something that can be used without making hardly any alterations to a normal car or bus. I've seen buses in Washington, D.C. running on natural gas. It's a wonderful resource. We need to develop it safely, just as Attorney General Corbett has already proposed. It's a wonderful resource for our state. It'll create good jobs that we need. That's where I stand on it. One of my planks is to have energy independence within the decade, and I see Marcellus Shale as a key to getting there.
Tom?
Yeah, and I agree. And one last thing is the plan for taxing this is seriously going to hurt job development in the state to a effect where the rationale is that they'll tax it for ecological or environmental purposes, but there are alternatives which they just seem never to have considered. That's the state legislature. And they claim that a lot of the taxation is for environmental purposes, but the reality is they're just going to take that money and use it for their own purposes and spend on other things, and they need to cut some of the waste in Harrisburg before they do this. So I consider it a real job killer, in fact, when they tax this great resource that we have.
Sure. Well, gentlemen, I'd like to wish both of you luck. There are 4 weeks left to Election Day, which can be a political eternity. So I know you've both got a very busy 4 weeks coming up. Dee, if people wanted to get a hold of you and contact your campaign, how would they do that?
We can go online at adcockforcongress.com or call us at 215-947-8644. It's going to take more than luck to win this election, and we are looking to win at the federal level, at the state level. And we need volunteers to get out there and talk to their friends and neighbors and make sure we get the job done. This is the most important election of our generation.
And Tom, how would folks get a hold of your campaign?
Contact my website at www.tombogar.org. You can email me at tom@tombogar.org, or you can call me at 215-663-0400.
Terrific. I'd like to thank our guests, Dee Adcock and Tom Bogar, for being with us today. If you have any comments or would like to contact us about ATRO, visit www.atrogop.org. I'm Kevin Supka for On the Air with ATRO. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Linda Lurch. Stay tuned for On the Air with ATRO, a program brought to you by the Abington Township Rockledge Borough Republican Organization. Coming up next on Channel 190.